How you doing? The purpose of this video is to try to real quick show some good settings for movie mode on the Nikon D5100, and I'm sure it kind of goes for the 3100, 3200, 5200 for the most part. The way it sounds is there's not a lot of adjustment for actual movie mode. All my videos that you're going to watch are shooting in full HD, and I pretty much run everything on program auto, which is, the P setting up top. But let's get started. The biggest thing I've seen with adjustments on this, for the most part, is your exposure compensation. And to turn that, you basically, this button here, and holding that down, turn that thumb wheel up here, which you'll see down here you got a plus and it says 07. Well, last time I used it I had plus 07, and that's one thing some people are not realizing is they accidentally turn that up and it'll throw everything way off. But you're going to see in these videos what different settings do, but I just wanted to show how you adjust that. That's minus 3.0. It'll go down to minus 5 and up to plus 5. And during broad daylight, that plus 5 is really bright. It'll try adjusting for it, but it's still going to be bright. But that's one big adjustment I use, and you can do that on the fly. And the other adjustment is to use your AE lock button, which is here with the key symbol above it. When you press that, you'll see your AE/L, your lock button's on. And to properly have that working, go into your menu and then custom settings and scroll down to F, which is controls, and you'll see a F2, which is assign AE/AF lock button. You click that and you got numerous choices here. You think AE lock, that's for autofocus too, but you just want AE lock only, but you want it on hold, which once that happens is you click that on, and when you press this AE lock, it's going to keep your exposure and shutter and everything the same. So we're going to go ahead and use them settings for this testing, and I'll show you what happens. And right now you're looking at picture control in vivid. I'm going to shut it off and start it up in neutral. And now there's in neutral. Vivid versus neutral. I'm going to switch back over to vivid. This is vivid. As you can see, neutral is a little bit brighter, it seems like. I'll go back into neutral. Okay, there's neutral. Now the other one is your exposure compensation. You can try to minimize graininess. Let's point at the basketball hoop. And now I'm set at 0 for exposure compensation. I'm going to work my way down. That's minus 2.0, minus 3. There's minus 5. Don't look like it changed much, but if you're going to notice, one thing it does is seems to take longer to adjust, but it's not going to, doesn't seem to give you as grainy of a picture. Now I'm going to go back from minus 5 straight up to 0. And that's 0. Now you can turn that exposure compensation all the way up to positive 5, and that doesn't seem to brighten anything too much. If you're in bright daylight, trust me, it makes it a lot brighter. But this, of course, your sensor can only let so much light in. So I'm going to turn that back down to 0. Work her down to minus 5. It does, like I said, I think it does give it a little bit less graininess. especially like basically what that's doing, what I found out in the daylight, is it's adjusting your shutter speed. So I mean, if you like, I'm going to do is point this in front of a fan and show you exactly what that ends up doing. It darkens the image, but you can actually see the fan blades rotating when you turn that down. Now, the only other adjustment you have on this, which it's pretty well known, is you got to get out of live view mode and be in aperture priority, and you can adjust your f-stop or your aperture down and put it where you want, and then go back to live view and get a picture, you know, or start taping. So I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, I went from f3.5 to f8 right now. That's f8. That's f3.5. Now let's just turn it up a little bit maybe. That's f5. Now your exposure compensations on I got it set at 0. It still doesn't brighten anything to turn that up. So it don't matter where your f-stop or anything is, it stays the same. Now there's one last thing you can do. You can hit your AE lock, your aperture lock, which I'm going to do right now, pointing at this light. If you notice that one, everything's a little bit darker, but it does seem a little bit less grainy. Now I'm going to shut that lock off. Yeah, and that's, you know, about the only other thing you can do with it. Now I'm going to show you one with full auto as a comparison. Now this is full auto. Not much of any difference. That, of course, you can't control anything. Alright, now I am in full auto mode. As you see this fan spinning, you can tell the blades, it's very blurry. Now I'm going to switch to program auto here. Now this is programmed auto, and my exposure compensation's at 0. And like I said, you can't adjust your ISO or your shutter speed on the fly at all while in live view mode, which live view mode's the only mode you can have in while filming. But if you notice, like, the sun's coming out, you start seeing them blades more. What that's doing is automatically speeding up your shutter speed to compensate, to let the less light in. But now I'm going to start doing my exposure compensation, turning that down. Like, there's -1. You can start seeing the blades more. If I turn that up to +0.7, blades become a blur. Now what I'm going to do is go up into that dark area, let it adjust for the light. Now I'm going to hit AE lock. And it's like quite a blur. AE lock off. Now on this one here, what I did was went out of live view. I'm in program auto. I went up into that area there where it's dark, and I have ISO on auto, max is 6400, and my minimum shutter speed at 1/2000th of a second. And I held it there and then hit my AE lock, locked it in, and this is what you're going to see. And now if I hit AE lock off, we'll go up into the light. lock it, lock off. So this is where you can somewhat control your shutter speed by changing stuff, say out of program auto or out of live view, and then locking your aperture, and you'll get that effect to where you can kind of keep it where it is. But you know, that's with exposure compensation on 0. That's -1. But it does seem to help somewhat to create a better video on that. But the only, like I said, the only real adjustments, I mean, you can play around, you might do something one time, you not be able to do it the next, but the only thing you can really do is by changing your, of course, your exposure compensation and stuff like that, you know, or your aperture, and then going back in. But what I'm going to do is switch over, and I got it on auto ISO 6400 1/2000 shutter speed. I'm going to change that now to something else. Right now I'm still on auto ISO. I'm at the max of 200 ISO and I'm lowest of 1/2000 shutter speed. If you notice, there isn't really much difference. And the reason why you see a little bit of a difference now is the cloud came out and the sun went away. But it's pretty much locking in your auto ISO and your shutter speed. Doesn't do a whole lot. The biggest one is just locking your aperture in and changing your exposure compensation. I'm turning it down now to -1. And as you can see, now you can see the blades a lot more. And again, the last little bit clip was 6400 ISO and 2000 shutter. This is 200 ISO and 320 shutter. I'm bringing your exposure compensation up, so I really don't think you can control anything too much with these, other than the exposure compensation and, you know, doing your aperture.